if I could just say one quick thing very quickly from what you just said.
Yeah.
What you've just described is basically possession. Because, as I've just been talking about, the base form of the body is waveform. These entities operating outside of human sight, some of them not far, also have a waveform pattern, right? That's their energetic field, their information field. What happens with possession is that field starts to, it's called wave entanglement scientifically, where the waves connect. You know, if you throw two pebbles in a pond and the waves come out and then they collide with each other, that pattern is called entanglement. So the waves of the possessing entity entangle with the waves of the body, mind of the person being possessed. And it can be done mildly in the sense that it will affect the person's perceptions and behavior. But when that possessing entity's field entangles massively with the possessed person's field, what happens is the information field of the person starts to be infused more and more with the information field of the possessing entity, and that's when faces start to change. You know, like the Exorcist movie type. I've seen it. I've bloody seen it, where people's faces just change. It's because I'm decoding the possessed person's field before they're possessed. I see a human. And then the possessed entity starts to get a grip and infuse its information field into the person. Now that person's hologram starting to shift because it's based on a different information source now. And so I see a person apparently face shifting. Now, one of the things I've talked about in the books, which is absolutely what you've just described, is that often these entities will they'll connect with someone, but then they'll kind of stay in the background. And when they're in the background, you would describe them as you have nice people. They're lovely people. But then when the entity wants to impose itself upon that person, then they become a completely different personality, because this possessing entity is a frickin' psychopath. That's why that which is possessed becomes psychopathic. And basically these bloodlines in these hybrid bloodlines, it's a form of possession, really. And so people you'll name people in the books about what they're doing, and people will say to you, oh, I met him, he was a lovely bloke. Well, yeah, I'm sure he was. But I wonder what you think if you saw him in the ritual. You know what I mean? Not the same people. So these things can be explained, but only once we let go that the world is solid and physical. Because while we hold on to that, which quantum physics has long shown not to be true, then what is happening cannot be explained. And mainstream science, as opposed to things like quantum physics and that whole area of beyond physical research, mainstream science says about so many things, well, we can't explain that. Well, the reason they can't explain that is they're coming from the world is solid, and they'll never explain it. Once they realize it's not and how reality really is, these mysteries, oh, it's a mystery. How do you explain? Doddle. I left school at 15. Never passed a major exam in my life. Never mind university. Played for Oxford United for 3 months, as near as I got to university. Because you don't need a scientific mind to understand the world. You do not need an academic mind to understand the world. You need an open one. And when you open to information as it exists, rather than stay on the postage stamp and ignore that, then you start to see the world as it is. While famous professors and academics are saying, we don't understand this at all, or they're saying that's not possible. No. Don't confuse the limits of your mind with the limits of possibility. They're not the same thing.
So Hitler was obsessed with Germanic history and bloodlines. Is it the competition between the Illuminati bloodlines that causes world war?
You think of a pyramid. You've got the top of the pyramid. That's where it's all coming from. As you come down the pyramid, you will start to get competition and what have you. But this will knock heads together if it starts to get in the way of the agenda for humanity, which is complete control, not least through artificial intelligence. And you see, you can see a war from a public point of view and from a participant's point of view as a really bad thing. But a war to this death cult is A, mass death ritual, and B, the greatest way to change a world, a country, a situation irreversibly is a war. You know, the world was not the same place after World War I, even more not the same place after World War II. And what was happening as these wars unfolded? Power was being centralized, centralized, centralized. And if there's a few of you and you want to control the many, you must centralize power eventually on a global level. So these wars are of benefit to this cabal because with every one of them, they are irreversibly changing society. You look at all the centralization of global institutions, whether it's the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, they came in the wake of World War II. So it's something I call, it's a process, creative destruction, where you have a war, you completely change the status quo. Then you have another war and you change it even more. And then you have another war and you change it even more. And what you're doing with each change of status quo is you're moving closer and closer to your ultimate goal, which is global centralization of power over every area of people's lives. And this is the goal of this cabal. And one of the massive central ways that they're seeking to achieve that now is the hoax of human-caused global warming. When I was writing in the 90s about global warming being a hoax, people, caused by humans, climate's always changing. People said, well, why would they do that? And I said, because they are going to say we have to centralize power over the fine detail of your life to save the planet. That's what's coming. And where are we? That's exactly what's happening. We have the Green New Deal with the Democrats in America through this lady, Ocasio-Cortez, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, this New York congresswoman. We have Extinction Rebellion in this country and around the world. And what they're calling for is precisely what I said would be the excuse of introducing as a result of selling the hoax of human-caused global warming. And it's kind of interesting, you know, there is a year that keeps being repeated, and it's 2030. If you look at a United Nations agenda, which is using the threat of global warming, climate change, to justify centralized control of everything. It's called Agenda 2030. It used to be called Agenda 2021, was it? But it's now called Agenda 2030. Ray Kurzweil, a Google executive, says that by 2030 they want to be connecting the human brain to artificial intelligence. And if you look at what people like Extinction Rebellion and Ocasio-Cortez and all these people, the climate cultists, I call it, around the world, they're saying we have a certain period of time to save the planet from destruction. That time they say we have takes us to 2030. Now, none of these things are unconnected because the end game is connecting the human mind to artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, or whoever controls it, becomes the human mind in totality.